The shout now. Well done, Bobby Johnson. Well done, Manchester United.
Beckham. Into Sheringham. And Solskjaer has won it. Radisson saved it. United again. Ready. A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie.
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things Manchester United. I'm your host, Nick.
I'm Colm.
And I'm David.
Yeah, back for the new season.
New season.
And we're allowing David on, even though he's now officially banned from Red Cafe, but still a member of the podcast team.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, new season, new start, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I can't remember if either of you are on our lockdown podcasts or not. I can't remember. We had two or three, but I know neither of you made the quiz we did. That I'm going to say I won, even though it was a joint win with Reese. But yeah, there's a few embarrassing answers I didn't remember in there. But yeah, glad to get back to the normal podcast and start talking about some actual football. I'm right in saying both of you were happy to see football back, right?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Ecstatic, yeah.
Yeah, no, because, online, and I saw a lot of negativity and a lot of people were quite against it. We did actually have a poll that I'd thrown up on Twitter, and it was quite close. Like, it was kind of a Brexit, like 55%, 45% for and against the football being back. Although I do think Ed was the only member of the podcast team who was really against it, and he claims he's not going to watch any of these games now, so you won't be hearing him on the podcast anytime soon. But no, I mean, look, at the start of lockdown, I was all for like null and void and laughing at Liverpool, but once it became clear that it was coming back, I have kind of been pretty excited to see it coming back. And in general, yeah, look, I enjoyed the game. I know a lot of people are saying, no crowd, football's nothing without fans. And yeah, I do totally understand that kind of mentality. But my view has always been even closed doors football is basically better than no football. And I just miss it too much. A lot of people laughed at the idea about piping in the noise, but I do actually think it makes a big difference and improves the kind of watching of it for sure. I mean, I know it's artificial, but I've watched a couple of those Bundesliga games that were total silence, and it really does make a big difference to having that kind of can noise in there. I mean, yeah, was there anything else you guys kind of thought? Did it feel like just a normal game to you, or was there a big difference?
I thought the start was the weirdest, particularly even the players coming out, panning around the stadium, which is an unreal looking stadium in fairness. Spurs have kind of gone full NFL, I think, and there was that big screen like counting down before the match, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but just emptiness. So that was the oddest part. Once the game actually starts, I kind of get over it very quickly, particularly with the can noise, which I believe is being played out in the stadium as well, so the players can hear it.
Is it? I don't.
I was going to ask that question. I have no idea if it's been played out.
I thought it was in one ground they were talking about, and I thought that would be helpful for them. But from a watching point, because especially it was such a big game in the context of our season, it was the first one. I don't know whether this is just a bias because it was United, so I was more focused on it. But I've watched a lot of the Bundesliga. I've watched most of the games since the Premier League restart, and it's harder, I think, to keep focused on it. But that United versus Spurs match, I was drilled into it completely, and it felt much more competitive than the other games I've watched previously. But again, I don't know if that's just because it's United players. I'm sort of naturally more focused, But it's better than it's a million times better than no football. It's amazing to be back, and it's just a needs must situation. But I think genuinely they've done as much as you can do, really, and it's absolutely fine. It's the best it can be at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I think they were kind of, lucky to have the Bundesliga start earlier and maybe have a look at what things could be improved, changed. And yeah, like I say, I think they've done as good a job as they can. The one thing that did annoy me, though, is I don't like these water breaks.
Yeah.
I did think it was unnecessary. I mean, it wasn't particularly hot yesterday. It had actually been raining. And I did actually think that both times we had those kind of breaks that are kind of, I guess, at the quarter way mark, we were actually playing pretty well at that time, and I thought it really kind of ruined our rhythm on two different occasions.
Yeah, I had read that or been told that it's not even so much about the heat as kind of the amount of water you have in your system can have a big preventative impact on muscle strains and small injuries and stuff like that. Because I don't really understand the science behind it at all, but that's what I've been told, that it was more from that point of view due to the lack of fitness than it was necessarily due to the heat. Because I mean, even I know where they're playing in summer where they normally wouldn't, but it's not as hot as many points during the Spanish season or whatever else, you know.
Yeah, no, like I said, that was the only thing that slightly was kind of annoying me. And then, yeah, we should give a shout out just before getting into the game, of course, to Marcus Rashford, who's been doing wonders during lockdown and had a great victory. Well, it's been kind of portrayed as a Marcus Rashford 1, Boris Johnson 0 in a lot of the places. But yeah, I just think, yeah, to see him rise up and push this kind of thing and get involved in things and great cause, basically. And to actually make a big difference in making sure kids aren't going hungry, school lunch vouchers being given out. I think it's brilliant. It's been one of the positive things off lockdown is how well our club and players in general have really dealt with a lot of the issues that have been coming up compared to other places. And, we did talk about it in one of the last podcasts with the club as well, making sure donating vehicles and manpower to the NHS and giving over facilities. So, yeah, that has been one of the big positives. Of course, yeah, there's been big focus now. All the players are coming out with their NHS hearts. Black Lives Matters on their back, and yeah, causes that I think we all support. I will say that there has been a few occasions, especially watching Sheffield United versus Aston Villa, that I was like, oh, I don't really know who that player is now because so it was confusing me a few times, especially from the back. But of course, when it's Tottenham versus Man United, it's no problem. So yeah, look, let's push straight on to talking about the match then. We're recording this on Saturday afternoon, so I had half a day or so to think about it. I mean, yeah, Colm, throw out what were your immediate thoughts, what you're expecting pre-match, and did we hit it?
It was so hard to have a prediction pre-match. You could pretty much make a case for anything happening. There's so many factors there that it was just so much not like a normal game. The fact that we were in such good form prior to the break, the fact that Spurs were in such poor form. So I think the reset was exactly that for them, a real chance for Mourinho to just wipe the slate clean and kind of refocus. Whereas for us, there's always that nagging feeling that we've been disrupted by it, perhaps more just due to the run of form we were in. The fact that we had so many players coming back and who was going to start, and just the whole issue with general level of fitness and sharpness and how the crowd were going to play into it. So I mean, I could have seen us, I think on paper a lot of people were thinking, look, this is as strong as we've been in so long. When you look at the starting 11s we could place and then also the bench that we would have even with those players playing, it's as good as I've felt about a Manchester United squad for a long time. It used to always feel like we were 4 or 5 signings away, and it just doesn't feel like that many at the moment with the signings that have been made under Ole. So on paper, I think, you would be confident, but it's Spurs, it's Mourinho. He's had 3 months to kind of, gear up for this game, and that's not even taking in all the context around him knowing this squad inside out, and all that kind of stuff. So, prior to the game, I was just nervous. I was very, very, very nervous because it's such a pivotal fixture. That these first 2 fixtures, in many ways, are going to define how the season ends for us, I think. Although I do think that lots of teams will slip up, lots of times, as we've just seen with Leicester and stuff like that. But they're just crucial games. They're both almost 6-pointers. And that was always going to be tough. But after an immediate kind of negative reaction with sort of the night to think about it, I'm pretty happy overall.
Yeah. And Dave, what did you think of our lineup? Was it what you were expecting? I think the main kind of talking points before was everybody was waiting to see whether Pogba started. I personally had said that I didn't think he was going to start and that he should play his way into the team after being out of it for so long, especially because we'd been on a good run of form. But the midfield in general, we had a lot of options this time. There was Fred, Matic, McTominay, Pogba, all kind of fighting for a place there. So yeah, what did you think? Was it the right lineup, or would you have gone with something different?
I don't think it was the right lineup. I was really surprised to see Lindelof starting there. I thought he's had a poor to average season, and Bailly had sort of came back into the team just before the lockdown and was looking like a much better partner for Maguire. So I was shocked to see that. I thought it made sense to go with a bit more pace and a bit more strength beside Maguire. I thought the midfield kind of picked itself based on the form before the lockdown. I'm like you, I did not expect Pogba to start, and I think he should play his way back into the team. But one thing I will say is he pretty much did that in his appearance yesterday. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal. Thought the game was pretty good. Played it the way I would have expected after seeing the lineups beforehand. I was kind of thinking, Mourinho's probably not the best manager to have during the lockdown because he's so strict. The players probably want to keep their distance, take some time off, maybe relax a little bit, and Mourinho's going to be on them. Didn't expect the squad to respond as well as they seemingly did because they were set up really, really well. And then I thought a draw was a fair result at the end of the day, but having seen Leicester's result today, that's kind of made our result seem a bit easier to take because I thought we could have gone on to win the game at the end. But all things considered, pretty happy with the result. Ecstatic to see football return, but the big takeaway for me was how well Pogba played. Like, I think in the first minute he made like a tackle almost just outside Tottenham's box. I think it was on Aurier. Just wrapped his leg around, took the ball from him and created a chance. And then the rest of the game was just effortless. We were trying to play through him. It was almost like Bruno was trying to play through Pogba as well. Like, just realising, this guy, when he's on, he is the true world-class player in that team, and he showed that yesterday, and it was so good to see.
I don't think Dave's had anyone to talk to football about during lockdown because he's just done the whole podcast there on his own. just a neat little summary of everything we're going to talk about there, Dave.
Well, that's all right. You guys might have different opinions.
Well, I mean, the only thing if we go back to the lineup, then I actually would have started Matic, and I do think that there was, at half time, I saw a lot of complaints on, a few WhatsApps or social media, people saying, oh, we're really awful, can't believe how bad we are. And I was kind of surprised that people were that negative because I thought we'd done well enough. And of course, apart from giving away a horrible goal that, we'll get onto the goal and whose fault it was, that I thought, we actually played better even in that first half. But where we were lacking was, one, I do agree, James is a kind of still weak link in the team, even though, the guy does a lot of hard work for the team, as well, especially defensively from an attacking position. He's still kind of definitely an area where we can improve. And then I did think McTominay was pretty wasteful in midfield, and it's why we weren't managing to get the ball to our forwards enough at all. Rashford, James and Martial all had not enough touches of the ball, especially Martial, but it's kind of been a trend with him now that he's not in the game that much, then manages to get a goal from somewhere. We talked about that before, where even though maybe he's not playing that well, not getting involved enough, but his stats are still very good this season. That was the only other call. I'd talk about Matic over McTominay. But most of the talk was about Pogba. On Greenwood, I still think that he's always been best when he comes in from the bench, where, maybe coming up against slightly tireder legs. Every time he's started, he seemed to have been a lot quieter. And especially that he's a player who can come in and make a difference for whether it's 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. I'm still kind of not sure about whether he's ready to be starting games regularly. But I'm sure he'll be given that chance. And apart from that, most of the team picks itself.
Would you start him over Dan James, Nick?
I think he can have a go at it. I mean, personally, I'd also like to see us at some point start giving a go to actually starting Ighalo up front. Maybe not immediately, but we're going to have so many matches, and then I'd say I'm still not sure about Martial as a striker. And say, why can't we start with Ighalo up front and have Rashford wide and Martial wide? But you're still fitting in maybe players who aren't. We don't feel like we've got anybody who's really naturally suited to that right side, which is why there's so much talk about players like Sancho.
I think in fairness, Greenwood is the most naturally suited to that right hand side, and he's not even. I don't think that'll be his long term forever position. But at the moment, he has the best quality off his left foot out of those 5 players, by far. And I think the fact that he scored 5 or 6 very similar goals and almost did right at the death yesterday in terms of that little sort of jinxy movement and then a loaf drive either off his left or his right shows that he's probably the most capable from that side. He has definitely done better as a sub than a starter throughout the season. That's clear. However, that will turn at some point. I think it's just a matter of getting enough minutes under his belt and enough good starts. Perhaps Spurs wasn't the game for it. Given the kind of gravity of the fixture, but I do believe there will come a point where he will kind of make that step from impact sub to a starter. And I just think with Dan James, we've asked a lot of him this year, and he's struggling. I think he's becoming quite negative, very reluctant to go forward at all. Really, whether that's dribbling or just passing. It's always back down Wan-Bissaka or back to his midfielder, and we always just end up into a corner. And I think that's tough on him at the moment. I think he'd rather be off the left, and I think as a backup to Rashford, when Rashford isn't playing well, like you say, would work a lot better.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one thing we should say about James. He definitely looks more comfortable on the left.
Yeah, totally. And it's tough to just play off the right when you're a right footer. When throughout your whole career, the best thing you like to do is come in off the left, which is actually why Rashford wouldn't probably look very good on the right either. So it's not just as simple as throwing someone out there. They kind of need experience of it, but they also need a bit more technical ability, I think, to make up for those things that are so comparatively easy when they're on the left. But we're all hoping it's obviously going to be Sancho during the summer or whatever, an out-and-out right winger. But I just think at the moment, Greenwood's level will be so much higher than James's. I'm absolutely convinced of that. I think it already is, to be honest. And whilst he does need protected, I would rather see the minutes go to the future, which is Mason Greenwood absolutely at this club, and use James in the way that he was bought for, because he was never bought as a starter, no way, and he's shown why, and that's not a big criticism, because he can be a fantastic cog in the squad, but not if he's playing 80 minutes in all the biggest games.
Yeah, defensively, James is much stronger in the team than Greenwood. And I think that's why in this kind of game where you're playing Spurs, away, well, in theory away, although, it all seems pretty neutral at the moment. That's why he's getting the kind of start in these matches. But, as an actual attacking outlet, yeah, Greenwood is far superior. And as you say, for me as well, his level should be much higher than where James goes to.
I think the other thing, particularly with our flanks, it has to be looked at as a partnership with the fullback. And we have issues on both sides with that. And they're big issues, I think, moving forward. They're things that just haven't been addressed in a very long time, even with new signings. And watching James now with Wan-Bissaka trying to do the business down the right is not good viewing in any way, shape or form. There's no link up there. They just seem to be in each other's way. Neither of them are looking good, in any way, shape or form playing together. I know Wan-Bissaka was coming into a little bit of better form attacking-wise before the break, but it all looks very unnatural and very uncoordinated, and like there's no plan there, and that they're just being left to flounder. And whilst I think we were exceptionally good defensively against Son and stuff like that, I still have issues with his positioning on Wan-Bissaka, and going forward, it makes it tough for the right winger. I think it makes it very tough, and vice versa, because I just don't know what we're telling our fullbacks to do in the coaching side of things, because it ain't no good. Yeah,
as I said, I agree. Yeah, Wan-Bissaka was getting a lot better. Even Luke Shaw, like he was, but they weren't offering that much. Shaw had the odd. They both actually had a couple of positions yesterday where they were in good positions, but yeah, didn't do that much with it at all. So yeah, it is again definitely an area we can improve on. I don't think it's going to be a change of personnel, but I do think that on the right side, there's definitely needs to be somebody else coming in. Maybe Greenwood will get a chance at it. We're all hopeful for Sancho, and then we'll see from there. On the left side, yeah, I think Shaw and Rashford do link up all right. But yeah, Shaw can definitely offer more. You do see more when Williams plays there. He didn't come on it all yesterday.
And that's sheer willingness, that's sheer just desire to actually go past Rashford. Shaw plays, and I'm a decent fan of Shaw, and he has good technical ability, really good feet, touch is always really good, passing's always nice and crisp, and he gets up and down. He has this real unwillingness to go past Rashford and try and approach the byline in any way, shape or form, and he also holds no width. He'll play on the edge of the 18-yard line, edge of the box really, and then Rashford does that as well, and I just think we compress our wings so much, even Dan James and Wan-Bissaka, it all comes very narrow in that sense, and I think one of Shaw or Rashford has to hold that width, and I just think it's so patent, and yet it just, we see that every single time they play, and I think it really hampers them in creating any kind of good relationship, because you just make it easy for two players to completely mark both you. It just, everything gets too cramped.
Yeah, I agree with that. There was so many times yesterday where you saw Shaw picking the ball, like the ball gets cleared, goes out to Shaw, and he's kind of almost on the corner of the 18-yard box. Yeah. And he's got what Rashford is within maybe 3-4 yards of him, to try and play in behind and organise Spurs defence. Then, it's just going to be so difficult, right? You're talking about the perfect 1-2. But I did think Shaw came into the game pretty well in the second half yesterday. And one thing I noticed is crossing like kind of along the ground. He always picks someone out in the box, like Martial's chance.
He played it for the Martial chance, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's a brilliant pick out, and is a goal on many days.
Yeah, that was a great save.
Yeah, I mean, tactically, the game ran, I think, just as I expected, and I'm sure everybody expected. I mean, we know how Jose's going to set up. We were pressing a fair bit, Spurs sitting off, and then as soon as we concede the goal, we exactly know how it's going to go after that. And we've seen it time and time again when Jose's our manager, that we used to go one up, then we start defending it, and nearly every time we'd end up conceding. So yeah, to see it from the other side was not that surprising. But yeah, look, let's talk about that goal. I mean, I personally thought we were pretty comfortable and looking the better team until that goal happened.
But Man United, Maguire and De Gea, I wouldn't even let them on the bus after the match. I get a taxi back to Manchester. These are established international players, and we're all sitting here, and I know we have to analyse the game. Analyse it till the cows come home. You do your job. We're trying to get in the top four. Not win leagues, by the way. We're just on about getting the top four. God forbid about winning trophies. Shocking. I am disgusted with it. Maguire, De Gea, you should hang your heads in shame. Representing Man United and letting people run past you. Get close to people. Move your feet to give away that goal. I'm fuming here watching this game of football. I am staggered at Maguire. Staggered at an international player can just get done like this. And I am sick to death of this goalkeeper. I would be fighting him at half-time. There's no getting away from that. I would be swinging punches at that guy. This is a standard state for an established international goalkeeper.
Look, he does have a point, but yeah, as usual in Roy Keane style, he's gone overboard. I think that was probably 3 months worth of pent-up aggression he's been holding on to throughout lockdown, and he was finally ready to let it all out at our defence.
I also thought what was kind of interesting with that outburst is he ended saying, we're trying to get in the top four. We, never mind winning trophies. We just want to get back to the top four. I'm disgusted. They should hang their heads. It was the most like a fan I've heard Roy, because for a long time, I think he's done all right in being quite impartial, because he hasn't maybe had a big expectation of anything from this United team. So he's been able to just kind of sink the boot in. And I know that's gone down quite poorly with a lot of United fans, but he never seemed, there was always that wonder about how much he actually likes United because of the way he left and the issues with Fergie and all that kind of stuff, and how much he kind of still holds on to us as a team in terms of, someone he would favour. But that last night, I think he expected us to be back, with the players we had, and I think he expected us to kind of smash Tottenham. And it was just disappointment, I think, in that. It was emotion, but it was more personal and more like a fan outburst than I'd heard from him. Normally he's quite detached and just slagging everyone off, which is fine. It's hilarious. It's great. But he seemed deeply upset by that,
It's actually something, no, I know what you mean. Like, definitely, especially when he was managing opposition, he was going out of his way almost to say, nothing to do with United. Yeah. But I mean, it's something I have actually noticed in the last year or two, that he's softened. Clearly been more coming out and saying, look, I am United, even though he doesn't like to say it.
He obviously has a good friendship with Ole, as Ole alluded to in his post-match press conference, and he maybe just sees now a United team that he can get behind a wee bit more, because I think before he was just resigned to the fact that we were no good.
That is exactly it.
He didn't like us, he didn't like the players, didn't like the management, whatever it was. And this is just me, I have no idea if this is the truth of the matter, but to me, I just think, like a lot of us, he sees a new leaf here a little bit. And the worst thing about optimism is when it goes wrong, like at halftime yesterday, in the way it seemed it was going, you're kind of doubly annoyed. It's easy to be resigned to something when it's always crap, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think part of it as well was that he had Patrice Evra in the studio with him. I mean, they're two legends of the club, so they're talking about Man United as we. So they're probably together for a couple of hours before they went on air. So having the two of them, it kind of makes sense that they would kind of talk more personally about it, because they were probably sharing their experiences of what the dressing room was like. And like you said, they're both seeing a team now that's coming together, is more likeable, has a manager that they are both probably pretty close with and want to see do well. But I think that passion from Keane, I mean, it was amazing to see. But did you guys think that his criticism was fair, especially on De Gea?
Personally, yeah.
Yeah, there is fair criticism. I do also think, though, that a lot of the criticism has gone on De Gea, but I think Maguire is as much to blame.
I think you could dish out criticism to about 4 or 5 players here.
Yeah, well, Shaw as well. I mean, Keane mentioned basically Shaw, Maguire and De Gea, because, there's, Shaw does a pretty poor header and starts pushing out as if he's done his job.
Lindelof, I think, doesn't do enough, and also Aaron Wan-Bissaka plays him onside in the first instance. Positionally, Wan-Bissaka is an issue.
But yeah, for me, actually, the most, as a defender, for me, I was most disappointed in Maguire. Like, the guy just, it wasn't even that great a move he's done or anything, just waltzes past him. And then once you've got like a one-on-one with the goalie, then I often think it's like difficult to blame the goalie, and that if you save it, you've done really well. I mean, all right, the shot was kind of at him. It wasn't like in the corner or anything, so he should definitely do better. But for me, actually, the most blame is to Maguire, that the guy didn't do anything amazing and kind of just like walks past him without that much difficulty whatsoever.
I think you just have to separate them out. Once Shaw feels he's done in the whole movement, so he's to blame for that part. Once Bergwijn goes past Maguire, he's completely failed there and he's done. But there's still the head. They're all to me, they're all separate parts of the same thing, if you understand. So to me, Shaw should be taking that down. And if he is headering it, I don't think it's too much to ask that he headers it to a red shirt, which he didn't. He just headed it back up and then moved forward. Mistake, not the biggest mistake in the grand scheme of things. Maguire has to, when he sees Bergwijn collect the ball, he has to be running backwards, like at pace, knowing what he knows about his own game and knowing how dynamic and tricky that winger is. For me, he steps up and kind of wants to make the challenge and gets absolutely done. Obviously, he has to be aware that he is not getting back and how high up the pitch he is and moving backwards immediately. Completely poor defending and no awareness of where he was on the pitch, I don't think. But then I think once he's passed, that's it, done, and then it's just on De Gea, Lindelof covering defenders, whatever. And De Gea, like, it's straight at him. It's just shocking. It's just bad. It's bad goalkeeping. Like, there's no, like, it can happen. It was a really well hit shot, but it's straight at him. He has to go with his legs like he normally does, or he kind of goes with the wrong hand in the end. But there's like, it's poor. I think 9 out of 10 Premier League goalkeepers that's saved 9 out of 10 times. I don't think it's it's more of a freakish thing that's come off them and gone up into the roof of the net, but I think most keepers save that most times.
Yeah, I mean, the De Gea question is definitely becoming a bigger and bigger issue, especially with Dean Henderson kind of, waiting in the wings. And I think maybe a lot of people are just thinking it's a question of when.
And some good praise from Ollie on that front as well in the past week. He's pretty much came out and said he's going to be number one at United and England.
Henderson?
Yeah, it's just a question of when. And like, I would expect Henderson to come back in for next season and challenge. I don't expect him to immediately be given the shirt.
Yeah.
I think, it's kind of difficult how you do that transition.
It is. I think you have to be really clear with it. There has to be I don't think you can go back and forth because that suits no one, and that's the danger with Henderson coming back. They can't play one game each. You need consistency between the sticks, and it won't help anyone to chop and change. I do think if Henderson comes back, De Gea has had no competition for that in any way, shape, or form. Romero is no challenge to him in any way, shape, or form. There's just so much complacency there, I see. I mean, since 2019, he's been directly responsible for 7 or 8 goals just due to his mistakes, which is the most in the Premier League in that time. And this season, I think it's 3 or 4 now, which again, top, if not joint top. And he's the highest paid goalkeeper in the league. He's probably the most reputable goalkeeper in the league, and yet he's literally made the most mistakes leading to goals in the league. And we talk about his agility and his the amount of times he saves you. Yesterday I watched Lloris make a brilliant save from Rashford in the first half with his feet. I then saw him make a brilliant save from Martial that was going into the top corner. And like, they're just saves I expect Lloris to make. And we wouldn't even look at Lloris like a great keeper. But he makes those same saves that I think De Gea makes, that we kind of maybe build up more than is true, really, and I think there's a serious amount of complacency about him, and it's about the wage as much as it is about the performance. You're not getting what you're paying for.
I actually don't think that it's anything about complacency, and like Keane says, the most overrated. I do think that De Gea was the best goalie for years, and even though he's not old for a goalie, he started very young. Like, he was a teenager when he was thrown into like the United team virtually. He was already playing regularly for Atletico Madrid. So I just think that he's actually past his peak and maybe now, on his way down. It doesn't mean that he's still not going to play at top level for a few more years yet. But yeah, I do actually maybe think we've already seen the peak of David De Gea just because he started that young. Whereas, people often think goalies keep going till their late 30s and everything, but, they don't normally start playing at top level as teenagers like he has done.
I think it would just be I think it would be like a proactive, really rubber stamp to say this is a new United, it's a transition, to get rid of the wage to make a decision and move forward kind of thing, even if it's, even if Henderson doesn't start immensely well or anything like that. But I just feel he's another one of those players that just possibly should go, and that's maybe harsh. A lot of people might disagree with that, but that's just how I feel about it now. And I do have a little bit of him wanting to leave before and stuff like that I'm just not, I won't be super upset if he does go. But that is where I'm at with it now.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens with that over I was going to say over the summer, but now, the whole transfer windows and everything is all out of whack. Although in theory, the transfer window is actually opening at the same time as it ever was. I thought they might delay it or something, seeing as the seasons are all different, but it looks like the transfer windows are going to be unchanged, which is kind of a bit weird. But we'll see kind of in a couple of weeks' time. I mean, yeah, Chelsea have already made a couple of signings, and I'm sure...
Great signings as well.
Yeah, on paper for sure, yeah. So we'll see what happens with them. But yeah, look, moving then on to the kind of second half. I mean, I thought there was kind of signs that maybe we might have even made a change at half time to get back into this game. Pogba was doing a lot of training at half time. As I said, personally, I felt it was in that midfield where players like McTominay were giving the ball away and not managing to get it to our forwards. We've seen, you remember Colm as well, like earlier in the season, we were saying, look, we don't really see what our style is.
Yeah.
But I think now, surely we do know exactly what our style is when we have a full team. And, you see that pressing, you see balls being sent forward very quickly.
Yeah.
And the problem is that Bruno is obviously great at passing, but maybe somebody like McTominay is not as good on the ball to start hitting those kind of long balls.
I thought McTominay and Fred both struggled big time until they went. And I think midfield's probably the toughest place to come back after a break like that and that kind of stuff, But I mean, Matic made a huge difference when he came on. McTominay, even when Pogba came on and he dropped back, looked much more comfortable. But they were trying to force balls forward, in behind for James and Rashford to run onto and try and squeeze ones into Bruno. But it wasn't enough. Although the one thing I would say is, I mean, Matic, people need to kind of reevaluate Matic as a player because he seems crucial at the moment. But that was a tough enough Tottenham midfield to play against as well. I thought Sissoko was brilliant in the sense that he just ran around all over the shop, smashing up everyone, and that's exactly what you want from Sissoko. And when we were hearing the team news about who was back, it was Son, Kane. But the fact that I'd heard that Sissoko was back and training extremely well gave me concern because as a midfield destroyer, when he's on form, he's right up there in the league in terms of dominating a midfield, and I think that was tough. And I also think Winks is a good player and stuff like that. So, and actually Lamela was really good yesterday in a defensive sense and a sitting in sense. I mean, he committed 4 fouls, didn't get a yellow card, it was an absolute joke, but they were tough to play against. So I think the midfield, they looked pretty not sharp. McTominay was off the ball, a lot of stray passes. Fred didn't look like himself, was losing duels, little duels all over the park, and the passing just wasn't there, and it totally hampered us. I mean, our front four were cut adrift, I think, a wee bit.
Yeah, I mean, Lamela was good defensively, but I actually was pretty glad that he was off his game attacking-wise because there was a few times where Son was making exactly the right run and he didn't find him. And we could have been in a bit of trouble if he'd found those right balls. And you see that Tottenham are obviously massively missing somebody like Christian Eriksen. And as well, let's not forget, Dele Alli was out of this game. I've not actually seen what exactly he did, but something from like Instagram or something like that, which is one of these social media things that mean nothing to me as a old man nowadays. Never seen Instagram or TikTok or whatever in my life, but yeah, whatever it is, I find it very amusing that a player gets banned for something that he's posted over there. But anyway, I'm glad that he was banned basically because I still remember he scored that pretty good goal against us in the return fixture.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, that second half went how as we knew it was, like I said, because we've had Mourinho as manager, we know what he does when you go one up. People keep saying, is he going to change his ways? Is he going to do something different? But it was exactly the same Mourinho. Let's protect our 1-0 lead, try and hit on the break. And we were kind of banging on the door, not doing quite enough to really say until, of course, we made those changes, Pogba and Greenwood coming on. And then it did seem just like a matter of time until we were going to get our equaliser.
Done brilliantly, Pogba gets it. Oh, he's fouled. Surely, penalty. Great work by Paul Pogba. Fantastic trickery, fantastic skill. Fernandes does the little stutter again. Fernandes! And once again, makes it look easy. And Manchester United are level with 10 to go at Tottenham.
great to see Pogba in. The thing that was really interesting to see was when Pogba came on, was how he was going to set up, where Pogba was going to be, where Bruno was going to be. There's been a lot of talk about, how are they going to play together? Who will be the more forward player? I mean, Bruno more or less is playing, I'd say, more towards almost number 10 rather than number 8 yesterday anyway, because, we had two other more defensive midfielders behind him. And then, how did you see it when he came in, Colm?
United fans are doing that thing that they love to do, which is picking new positions for players, even though there's no indication that they're ever going to play there. We just like to do that for a laugh, basically. Paul Pogba is a 6,8. He's an out and out centre midfielder, and Bruno yesterday and in his United career so far has clearly played as a high 10. Second striker 10, wants to be up the pitch. I actually felt yesterday before Pogba came on that Bruno could have dropped in a bit. I mean, he was sitting right up the pitch with this big gap in between our two centre mids and him, Rashford, James. And I actually mentioned at the time that if he was maybe dropping deep a wee bit just to kind of, you have to be reactive to a situation on the pitch, and I think it was so clear that we couldn't bring the ball through that kind of zone, that if he maybe dropped in a little bit and was able to provide a bit more quality alongside Bruno and Fred, that we might have seen a bit more out of our wingers and Martial before Pogba came on. But I mean, when he did come on and dropped in beside McTominay as it was, and McTominay took a much more sitting role as opposed to the kind of box-to-box thing he was trying and pretty much failing at during the 60 minutes prior. I mean, Pogba was just... Spurs didn't want to go near him, didn't even want to engage him. Spurs were pressing really well all game. Actually one of the big issues was that Son and Kane and Bergwijn were really pressing our two midfielders, and it meant that our midfielders had to get past them to even engage with the Spurs midfielders. It was a total defensive effort from Spurs. But when Pogba came on, players don't want to go near him. Don't want to even get involved with him because they just know they're going to get done, I think, and he can hurt you in so many ways. And he was just so good. It was like, it was different gravy, Nick. Like, it just showed, I think you could play Paul Pogba right wing and he'd be our best right winger. I think you could play him up front, he'd probably be our best number 9. I think you could play him left wing and he'd be the best out there as well. I think you'd probably play him as a centre back and he'd look like, Maldini and Brazy. But he's just at a different level, and I think you could see that with Bruno throughout the game as well. I mean, to me, the whole way through the game, the shots he was stinging from 30, 40 yards, his free kicks, his touches, his sharpness, Bruno is just a level above, and that's a really positive thing for me because we're signing the right players, we're getting the right things involved, and it made such a difference to have one other player, one other threat, because Rashford had a very poor game, wasn't at the races. Martial only looked good when Pogba came on the pitch. James probably just doesn't have it in all honesty, and it just looked like it was too much on Bruno's shoulders. And as a club for a long time, I think we've done that a lot, where we say, "Oh, we signed this guy Pogba, he's going to do everything for us. Just give it to him." And then when Pogba can't quite do everything on his own, we go, "Oh, he's inconsistent. We should get someone else." And it's unfair. I think we need more attacking threats. We need to spread the load. But watching Bruno and Pogba play together, which I think they can do very comfortably with a good DM sitting beside them, probably manage. Although I think McTominay could grow into that role. I don't see any issue with it. I think it's a positive, setup. But 90% of teams in the league, it's going to be the best setup, and even arguably, I would rather see us go and play Spurs like that. I would rather see us go and play Chelsea like that. Maybe City and Liverpool, you might want to change it, but for the bulk of games, we should be on the front foot and playing that way. And I think that's what Pogba and Bruno would do for you.
Yeah, I think we are definitely going to move towards that. I mean, look, it was obviously outstanding play for the actual goal. It did take still, though, 20 minutes, to be fair, after we made those subs, because, they came on around the hour mark, and it wasn't until the 80th minute that we actually get that goal.
Well, I think we there's something like we had created one chance in the 60 minutes before Pogba, and in the 5 minutes since he came on, we made 3. Or so, the stats are there. And obviously it's easier to come into a game when all you have to do is go and score a goal. And by that stage, Spurs were so set up, and they weren't offering much really beyond that. And so the game has a real attack against defence feel. So it's the easiest situation for him to come into. But I do think he could have came on earlier, and then meant possibly it would have been a different result. But
yeah, no, I actually thought he might have come in at half time, and I wouldn't have thought that was a strange decision at all, to be honest. And talking about on the chances, one of my favourite stats, is the XG. I had the kind of report from a Tottenham friend of mine, and I said, look, probably happy with the result at the end, seeing as we were 1 down, but I thought we were the better team. And he said, well, look, from the other side, you've needed a soft penalty to draw this game with us, otherwise we win the game. But looking at the XG, that we should have, according to that, we should have won this game quite easily, because they're talking about Spurs at 0.55 or something, and us at 1.8. And I think, yeah, from my memory of the game, that's about right. I mean, apart from Spurs' goal, there was the one save De Gea makes from Son. And did you see that argument as well in the studio where
Yeah.
Evra's trying to defend De Gea and say, look, that's a great save. Roy Keane saying, what? I could have saved that. That's just an everyday kind of save. And,
But it wasn't an amazing save. It wasn't as good as Lloris's two
it wasn't
saves.
a worldie.
No.
It was a bad header. Son should be putting that in the corner.
Yeah, he should be getting that into the corner.
world.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, apart from that, I mean, like I said, there was a couple of openings Spurs could have had where somebody like Lamela didn't play the right ball. But yeah, I don't remember them having too many other chances. Whereas, you know, there's one great save from Lloris from Martial. Then there was a couple of times similar where Rashford was through. Twice.
Rashford also had that header that he just pulled out of, which to me is a gilt edge chance, you know, so...
Is that, you mean from like Fred free kick? Are you talking
Yeah,
about?
exactly. Yeah, I think it was first half.
It was, like I said, they don't go down as clear-cut chances. But yeah, there was twice that Rashford was through. And I think he's not totally match fit yet. Shouldn't forget that, yeah, he wouldn't have played this game if it had been a normal season. And he's clearly still just getting back into it. Like Harry Kane as well. You know, I've seen him, everybody saying, you know, well, I thought Harry Kane was supposed to be back for this match. But yeah, I didn't see him. But yeah, I think it's just obvious that these are players who had pretty bad injuries, would have had absolutely no chance of playing this game in March, and are only just coming back into it themselves. So it will take a bit of time. And yeah, none of the players are going to be at 100% in the first game back after 3 months out. So yeah, it is going to take a couple of weeks to really see the best of anybody. But yeah, as I say, based on the XG, we should have won this game pretty easily. And yeah, that is the way I kind of remember it, for sure. I mean, David, do you think, I know you said at the end you were pretty happy. I mean, I personally feel slightly disappointed, think we could have won this one. But what, do you think we should be happy with a point?
Like I said earlier, it's kind of more off the back of Leicester drawn today as well. It's kind of made me a little bit more happy with it. I remember after the game was done, I was kind of disappointed. I felt like we had done enough to win the game. I'm not a huge believer in the XG stat, but sounds like that's saying we should have probably won the game quite comfortably as well. Tottenham, they didn't offer much. Really weren't that much of a threat. The goal they scored was weak. So many mistakes that we could have prevented. And when Pogba did come on, I thought Tottenham's midfield, they didn't dominate ours, but they were definitely getting the better of the exchanges. And then when Pogba came on, like Colm said, they just didn't want to go near him. They Dyer for pretty much most of the game, whenever the ball was coming into Martial or James's feet, whoever he was closest to, he was kind of right up the bat, niggling away, and was having quite a bit of success. He tried it with Pogba, and Pogba just danced around him like he wasn't there. It was so good to see. He completely turned the midfield battle in our favour. And I think we kind of get the answer to the conundrum of how to fit Pogba and Bruno together, and it's just put them in and let them play. Like Colm said, maybe you change that against Man City and Liverpool, but pretty much every other team in the league we can get on the front foot against. And you have to consider as well that those teams are going to be saying, how do we stop Pogba and Bruno if they're both on? Because if they both turn up in a game and both put in a 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 performance, there's very few teams anywhere that are going to be able to live with that. We saw a couple of glimpses of it yesterday, and after 3 months out, Pogba's first game back, and I'm not even sure how long, to see that high quality level from them both at times was exciting for the future, and I cannot wait for the next game. And I think Pogba's done enough to justify starting. I don't think.
So all right, if Pogba starts this next game, so it's Sheffield United, which, as Com said, is a big game for us for kind of European qualification. They're just a couple of points behind us. They do play, is it tomorrow maybe? I think they play tomorrow, and then we play against them on Wednesday. We've already seen them. They had 0-0 against Villa because they had a game in hand, which they should have won. Actually, one of the most ridiculous decisions that you're going to see for a long time, where, you know, that ball was clearly over the line.
Yeah, it's a freak thing.
I actually think that there's not been enough made of that. Like, I'm pretty sure if that had happened to us or one of the bigger teams, that there'd be a mass fallout from something like that. And
there was
people
a big push saying that Villa should have let them walk it in, because if you remember last year in the Championship, Leeds let Villa walk in a goal after they didn't play on from a throw-in or something. It was something like that, where it was a sporting gesture kind of thing, where previously Villa had allowed Leeds to have the ball back from a throw-in or whatever, and then the same thing happened later, and Leeds went on and scored. But then Bielsa was going mad and made sure that it was kind of remedied by letting them walk it in. But in this instance, I don't really think that was applicable because the players don't know that the ball went over the line. It's
exactly.
the technology feel and the ref that's in control of that. And like as much as goal line technology, Hawkeye or whatever, has been so on point, that's the one thing. Like as with offsides, even if it's to the ridiculous degree of a millimeter, it still is what it is, and it's beyond dispute kind of thing. But in that instance, it was just a complete joke. Like he was in the side net and behind the post. Like it was just ridiculous. But clearly, that was the one little point that the cameras had a little blind spot with the exact way the people's bodies were and the way the post was. But why they can't look at that at VAR, and also the linesman, behind the goal or whatever, or on the far side, why can't they be saying? I don't think the ref has much blame in that, but why can't they be saying, here, we may want to look at that, get yourself over to the halfway line and have a look?
I think it's just because we've just come to trust that technology
and
so
I understand
much
that he's saying the watch is
it's
God.
Even me, like I was watching the game and you just said, all right, well, yeah, it mustn't have crossed the line.
And we would take that because it has been 99, well, it's been 100% correct up until that point. You have, unlike VAR, where it's so up for debate and everyone wants to look at it all the time because it just seems to change on a daily basis. That goal line technology has been 100% accurate. So I can totally understand why he just goes, watch says no, and that's it. And so in that sense, I think it's more understandable, and that's probably why it hasn't been blown into this huge thing. But I mean, for Villa and for Sheffield United, that point could be huge.
Yeah, well, let's say if Sheffield United had 2 more points, they'd already be ahead of us.
Yeah.
And let's see in the relegation battle whether that 1 point makes all the difference. But anyway, back to the question, David. If Pogba is starting against Sheffield United, who comes out? Who doesn't start? Because we've got Fred, McTominay and Matic, who all have pretty good shouts to be starting games for us. Have all played very well for us for for months and months. So yeah, who do you say comes out then?
If I was going on pre-COVID form and what I saw yesterday, my midfield 3 would be Matic, Pogba and Bruno. And obviously you'd be asking Pogba and Bruno to put in a shift somewhat defensively as well. I think Matic is just a bit more steady in there, and I think he plays better with Pogba and Bruno. I don't think Fred and McTominay's distribution is quite at the level it needs to be, especially with those kind of fast killer passes that just break the lines. I think Matic is a bit better than that, just picking balls out, pinged into the feet. So, I mean, it is tough. It's what do you sacrifice some defensive solidity for basically 2 world-class performers that are going to win you games against a team like Sheffield United, who, I mean, I think they're overperforming, and we're overperforming all season based on the squad. It's just that a lot of managers haven't been able to figure out how to deal with Chris Wilder's tactics, and I don't know if Ole has taken any time to analyse the best way to stop overlapping centre backs, but I think you have to put someone solid, someone that kind of doesn't go too far beyond the halfway line, which is Matic, and then just let them worry about Pogba and Bruno, because they have to worry about us more than we have to worry about them at this stage. So that's what I'd go with. What about you guys?
That was actually one thing that why they weren't so great against Villa is because I've totally forgotten his name now. But the Sheffield United centre back who does push on, he was injured. He didn't play in that game, and I think it really did see that they missed that kind of drive that they get sometimes. That's their surprise tactic, isn't it? Overlapping centre backs. But yeah, he was injured and he was out, and I don't know if he's going to be back to play against us or not. And that's why they were a little bit less effective against Villa than you might expect.
I mean, less effective going forward, I think. But I watched that game, they were so solid. And it was
solid.
It was a brutal game to watch, and that is Sheffield United. And I don't mean that as necessarily a bad thing, but it's just tough to eke out any chances against them. They really are solid, and that's self-limiting in their own sense. But it seems throughout the season that a lot of teams can come and just get a wee crap goal against us. So it's something to be hugely wary of. But I think coming back to the Matic, Fred, McTominay thing, I mean, for me, it's Matic and Pogba against Sheffield United. I think in so much as there's an easy sell in terms of we're spreading minutes around. So, Fred and McTominay got 60, 70 minutes there. So now Matic and Pogba get the minutes on the other side. And I think you don't necessarily even have to say, I'm picking you because this is the team. I think you're just saying, well, we need to get everyone up to that level of sharpness, and therefore, that's why. But I actually think that's the balance at the moment. I think I think there's a long-term argument to be had between Matic and McTominay, because I think McTominay can add a lot of value in that same role because he's more responsible defensively. Fred is in a really vulnerable position, and it's such a shame because he's been so good. For me, he's our player of the year.
Yeah, did you see he looked so disappointed when he got substituted?
Well, I think he was disappointed with his performance. I don't think it was necessarily to come off.
I was actually slightly disappointed myself because I thought that he'd been better than McTominay.
I thought he'd been slightly better, although I don't think there was much in it.
I expected McTominay to come out and was surprised when it was Fred.
But... Well, I think McTominay picked up a lot more second balls, which was still good, and was doing a lot more early, which does count for something. I know it's not glamorous or it's often overlooked, but Fred doesn't really give you that. But I have higher expectations for Fred than I do for McTominay, and based on the season he'd had, and he wasn't himself. But he's in a vulnerable position because just stylistically he does not fit in a midfield three with Bruno and Pogba, I don't think. And if he does, it's only against the weakest of midfields. For me, he's so good and he's so dynamic, but he can be positionally difficult because he does get around so much. People have been likening to kind of like a Kante or a Ndidi in terms of how actually effective he is in terms of turnovers and stuff, and he is, but he's not as rigid positionally at all. And he kind of does what Pogba's going to do anyway in terms of he should kind of dictate the play a little bit more with his passing. And I just think he, not through any fault of his own, but just through his own traits and that doesn't really fit in that midfield with Pogba, as well as maybe McTominay or Matic. But I think it should be Matic. And I think when Matic came on, that left foot of his is so cultured, and he moves the ball about with just a bit more zip and precision, and just feeds Bruno and the wingers, I think, a little bit better, just because he's a top quality footballer. But Matic is a short-term solution, so it's something that needs arrested with another defensive midfielder, I think, unless McTominay really grows into that.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because I think there's been a lot of our fans that probably around last November or something probably thought that neither Matic or Pogba might ever play for the club again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were both players who were getting a lot of stick out of favour. People thought they might move on, both of them in the January window. And now all of a sudden we're talking about them being starters. I mean, I would go with that same team as well. I might give Williams a run out. Yeah, maybe Greenwood deserves a start. But, we're going to see a lot of this squad used. And yeah, it's actually interesting to see when the 20-man squad is picked, 11 starters and 9 on the bench. There's still some pretty big names who are not even making the bench, the likes of Dallo, Andreas, not even making the bench at the moment. But yeah, we've got, after that Sheffield United match, we've got the FA Cup game with Norwich. So I'm sure everybody's going to start getting involved, and especially with the 5 substitutes. But yeah, I would probably go with that as well. Now, we should beat. We've got to win this game because we've got to start putting some wins in now to really make this difference.
4 points from those first 2 games, you'd be happy with broadly. I mean, I think we're good value for 6, but that's just not always the way it goes against a decent Spurs side. But it has to be 4 points. I mean, a draw or loss to me is a slip up big time.
Yeah, I mean, a draw is not going to be like the end of the world, but to really start making some momentum, to really start going for that 4th place, then yeah, we have to pick up wins over here. And yeah, as I said, they still have to play again yet, Sheffield United in between. But in that first match, even though they were looking difficult to get through, they weren't creating that much, and I think they've still got themselves a couple of players who are maybe coming back from injury, and who were missing from their Fleck as well were injured, and they're being pretty good performance for them throughout the season. So I don't know if they're going to be available against us or not. So it could make a big difference. But yeah, look, I think we've covered a lot of the stuff there. Do you want to throw out a prediction for the Sheffield United game, David? What do you think the score is going to be?
I'll go for 2-1 for us. 2-1 for us. Rashford and Pogba.
All right. So, Colm, you think you're confident of the win?
I am.
Right?
I think 3-0. I think it's going to be a good performance.
It's going to be that easy, yeah?
Yeah, I think we actually carry good momentum from the Spurs. I think it's always good to come back from, even though we absolutely should have won the game given the amount of possession and the territory we had. Players just weren't quite as sharp as probably understandably, and therefore didn't get the second goal or whatever. But I do think we carry momentum from that. I think it was a good comeback. I think we clearly exhibited we're the better team. I think the players will be pleased with that. Ole's post-match press conference was brilliant. I thought he was very bang on with what he was saying, and he was a bit disappointed. So that gave me great heart, and I think we are going to smash Sheffield United.
Okay, glad to hear that from you, Colm, because I know you'd been slagging off Ole like back a few months ago for his post-match things and that whatever.
Yeah. Sometimes he came off like an absolute melon, and he still sometimes is too nice sometimes for me. But it was good yesterday. He was much more direct, in the things he said about what he wasn't pleased with. Our start particularly, which I thought was a great point, because we had a lot of the ball to start, and it would have been very easy for him to say we were controlling the game, but he said it was too slow, we were too ponderous, so even though we were dominating, we weren't doing anything with it, and said the players needed more confidence. Ultimately, it's for him to do that, and if the fullback/wing thing doesn't change quickly, I'll be back on it, Nick, don't worry. But
I was going to say, have you still got that Ole out t-shirt in your cupboard, or have you burnt it? Is it gone forever, or is it still...
It's got webs on it, but he's doing a fantastic job. The transfers in are giving me great heart. I have question marks about the tactics and still the way we play our football. You said there is a more identifiable style, definitely. However, there's still big issues that I think we should be seeing progress on, particularly fullbacks and wingers, and our general shape. And that still annoys me. It still annoys me a lot. But that's a small criticism that I'm quite happy to park for a little while. And broadly, I think you'd be mad. I mean, that's 12 games unbeaten. It's all looking good. The signings have been good, and that really is the big important thing right now. I think just that we refresh this squad, and he seems like a very good man to do that. So end of the season, no issues, and we'll see how the season ends.
Yeah. Look, there's still a lot to play now in a short space of time. That top four. Although, top five might be enough, but we don't know at the moment. So obviously, we have to be aiming for that top four. We look at Chelsea, but I actually think, Leicester not totally out of reach at all. I mean, you mentioned, David, that, they got a point there. So, they're not out of reach at all either.
Tough running Leicester have as well.
Exactly. And on paper, our running looks easy, but it never always works out like that. No. And especially, there's a bit of a kind of wild card feel to everything at the moment where you really don't know what you're going to get, where does home advantage go out the window, and there's a lot of changes going on here. So let's see how it goes. I mean, we have those extra matches with FA Cup to come as well. The one thing though that does change is that we're not going to have these European games in the middle to think about, and it's only full focus on domestic side, which is interesting because we we've often had bad games as well after some grueling trip out to whatever Moldova or something like that. But we don't even have to think about any European things until we finish the domestic season. So we can just focus on this at the moment and then see where we're at. We don't have that conundrum of, do we go all in on the Europa League or push on the league? So that is one of the big differences about how all this is panning out at the moment. But anyway, look, I think we're all glad just to have some football back.
Hugely.
Absolutely. It's amazing. It
makes you realise how sad and empty your life is with it when these random football matches of people you don't know or whatever disappear. That it's such a big impact, like.
Yeah, no, look, totally. And like, as I said, the thing I'm still missing is playing it. Like, I'm itching to get on a football pitch. Like, one thing is watching it, but I actually miss even more is playing it. So, I don't know when we're going to be allowed to go and do that. Although I have seen a couple of games going on in the park near me, even though officially that's against the kind of rules. But people are doing it for sure. But I'm still kind of more or less sticking to the government guidelines, and we've not managed to have our Saturday morning football matches going yet, but we'll see when that happens. But look, we're happy to be back. We'll try and record again sometime in the next week or so. Please do hit us up. Like, we need to. We've been trying to get a bit more on the social media nowadays that we've always been useless at. So if you're not already, follow us on Twitter. We're now subscribed to us on YouTube, Spotify, all these things we're on. And so we do appreciate if you can give us some support on there. And look, let's see when we're back for the next one. That's goodbye from me.
Cheerio.
See you later, guys. Thanks a lot.